Anybody who enters these competitions and what they hope to get out of it is a good score. Yeah. What they do with that score is often, okay, now we can highlight this wine and it has a certain score. And so for the generic person looking at it, it's like, okay, this wine has passed a standard of quality. It's a wine that now can be made, it can get into a magazine, put it on your website. It can be used as material within the portfolio.
What has been, Michael, your experience throughout the USA wine rating? So where I'm going to is, so tell me, as a judge who's on behind the judging seat, who has this responsibility of evaluating the wines, making sure the producers get the right feedback, they get the right market review of where their wine stands if they want to come to US market. So what is your experience overall?
Within the sommelier business and USA wine ratings, for example, it's a very exciting process as a judge to judge. We're very excited to judge these wines, to look at these wines and really root and uplift those small producers that are just trying to get notoriety. This is kind of a market tool for a lot of these spirits, brands, wineries to, when they get a rating, it is part of their marketing to then sell their wine. And it's hard. I mean, California makes most of the wine, and we see a lot of wine outside of California. Within this, and even globally, regions that are classic and not so classic, regions we deal with a lot or we don't deal with. And so it's interesting who we see enter these competitions, who's trying to get into the market. And we often are tasting really nice things, giving them really great ratings. But I honestly don't know if it's gonna make it into the market that I'm personally in. I'm in a market like saturated by Cabernet and Pinot Noir and Chardonnay. And so when we get even certain wines from Eastern Europe, for example, that are high quality and delicious, and we're gonna give them a great rating, they might not make it into my market, but that doesn't mean they're not gonna make it into the rest of the market of the other 50 states in the United States, for example, or even internationally. So I might not know what happens afterwards to these wines, but something like that could really help a winery in some market. Yeah.
So you, along with other judges, you have this onus of becoming a gatekeeper, as you said, that we are the one who would like to see that who want to come into the market, what sort of brands are entering. So when you are a gatekeeper of such market, when you have the responsibility of buying and making sure it reaches to the consumer, we have certain criteria at USA Wine Ratings, as we were discussing. We have quality, we have value, and we have packaging. How do you fit it with what you do in general, being a gatekeeper, making sure that you buy the right wines for your consumer, for the trade?
Absolutely. Well, I think the wine has to taste good, right? Yeah. We're tasting them wines and we're judging them on the quality that they are. That's number one. For all those who don't have great packaging or a nice label, it might be time to get a nice label, because I honestly love a nice label. I do judge labels, but this process is not political. It's not like I'm letting in this person and not that person. It's really hard. It's really hard to kind of show off something that represents the land, and it's not always good. And sometimes it's amazing. So, I mean, you just have to have nice packaging and it has to taste good. And then at what price is that gonna be? And so it's the sweet package.
So all three criteria goes hand in hand for you, right? So you make sure that your decision is not just based on quality, but it also sees and also qualify and compare other two criteria of packaging and pricing as well.
Absolutely. And it's not just us gatekeepers selling the wine. We're small elements of introducing a wine to a market. And then it can't just be one person doing that. There has to be a greater effect. Or even regionally, if there's an interesting wine coming from Hungary that is going into a restaurant, it might do a world success for that winery and that restaurant. But regionally, you need all kinds of producers from that region to be spread out throughout a market. And then over time, that region then has a reputation that grows. So a small winery in one program can have great sales. But I think as a region, So several wineries from that region going into a market. If you over time see that the quality of those wines rise, and then you'll see the market share rise, then that's a good thing. And then down the road, people actually know those wines by name. Oh, you're like, wow, 10 years ago, no one knew anything about these wines, right? And it's amazing that we now have this much sales in America because of this certain thing happened and it kind of spread. So it's hard for one producer in one region to do things on their own. They often have to band together and go towards a market to really
Big
grow.
effect.
Yeah.
Yes.
And honestly, once that works and once they get more money, that goes back to the farming, the winery, and you'll see then that they will put more into sustainability and to actually the right things to, the right equipment upgrades to the right packaging upgrades and all that stuff. So it's hard. It's like where do you start, right? The chicken and the egg.
Correct. So one more adding to this. So during the competition, when we talk about behind the table, we see that it's you in the panel. It's let's say a master sommelier in the panel, a retail buyer in the panel. So it's a different sort of a profile that we try to make sure that it gets an inclusive feedback for the producer. What are your thoughts on that? Like how that plays an important role for a producer, let's say, for a winery? That's
a great kind of trifecta of judging too, because we are coming from it from different angles in the market. We do have, all of us are often have great educational backgrounds in wine. We know what quality is, and that's a big thing. But we do have different approaches.
Correct.
In retail,
yes.
Someone is buying something for not just the price and the quality, but can they buy 20 cases of it really easily. Right. In a restaurant, we look for quality, obviously price, or like, can I have this by the glass? Does it fit in that profile? And then you might be buying a few cases of it.
True.
One case of something, often if there's a great discount, you might be inclined to do 5 cases, et cetera, maybe more of something by the glass. You're always thinking about buying, but also selling as well. So I think when we're judging these wines, we are judging them on quality of taste, and then we see how expensive they are, and that influences what market it might go into. And we see the packaging, and we say, wow, they really have something here, or they can really work on that.
Amazing. So we are talking about brands, we're talking about wineries which are making all the efforts to come to, let's say, in US market. Along with us, there are several other competitions who try to evaluate, who try to make it easier for, let's say, buyers to get a sort of a list that is good in quality, let's say good in packaging, good in pricing as well. So what message would you want to give to these wineries or suppliers to what they should be keeping as a criteria before entering into the competition? Should they read more about the market? Should they consider more about their competitors, taking care of the pricing, seeing who they are targeting to, making sure the packaging goes well? So what is your message for the
I think
wineries?
Anybody who enters these competitions and what they hope to get out of it is a good score. Yeah. What they do with that score is often, okay, now we can highlight this wine and it has a certain score. And so for the generic person looking at it, it's like, okay, this wine has passed a standard of quality. Because there's a lot of people who don't care about scores. But honestly, when you have that, it's a wine that now can be made, it can get into a magazine, put it on your website. It can be used as material within the portfolio. So these little brands, they should, beyond the competitions and entering and marketing, they should be looking at where are their wines generally sold.
Correct.
So, and what portfolios and importers and exporters are in those regions. You might want to band with someone who are a successful portfolio, and that portfolio, exporter, importer, will then it's their role to have influence in certain markets. And you can do that research too as a producer. You should understand where your wine's gonna go. Where do you want it to go? There's a lot of small producers that are high quality in California that actually, they don't want to be sold everywhere, and there's certain wines that are sold just at restaurants. So there's really high-end wines that just want to be associated with like Michelin star restaurants and like small exposure, and that's not because they have a lot of money and they're snobby, but they just they really don't want to sell too much of their wine in general. And if they want it with fine cuisine, they want it in the right hands. They want it not that far away from home.
As you know, the philosophy of USA Wine Rating is always to help and uplift the small and medium suppliers and wineries as well. How do you think these competitions are important for them to enter?
I think it's a great way to have a reality check. I mean, let's be real.
Correct.
We're always trying to talk about how do these wineries and how do these wines get somewhere. But honestly, some of these wines don't need to go anywhere. And maybe they are reaching to the wrong market because there will be too many resources that are going to be wasted.
Invested, yes.
Yeah, if you're going towards the wrong market, if you're really pushing on a personal agenda, whereas if you're following where you think the wine should go, which is usually a lot more locality, you should sell to your local market first.
Correct.
Then if you have bandwidth and expansion and product to go beyond that, then go beyond that. And if you're in Europe, a lot of those wines are enjoyed regionally.
Domestically, yes.
Domestically, and same here. But you can go beyond that and beyond that. And sometimes when you realize if you have a really nice product, if you're doing 70% of your productions being consumed at local restaurants and by consumers, that's great. But you're trying to what you then want to do with the rest of your
30%.
expenses, is you want to use that kind of like marketing and reputation.
True.
So that's what certain high-end brands are doing. Yeah. Why are they putting this only in Michelin restaurants and here and there? It's because they're just trying to sprinkle their brand in the right places. So some people hate to be in magazines. They want to be in front of people, right? And some people don't want a rating at all. This wine is good on its own. We don't want to submit to any ratings. But we want to be on the tip of a sommelier's mouth, right?
Right.
We want to be in the greatest wine list in America and the world. So that's, there's different approaches, but I do think there's a lot of value in having a good score from like USA Wine Ratings, because it's definitely, you've passed the standard of quality for sure.